Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of the Clipper community faithful. Thank you so much for showing up today on a Friday at noon Eastern time. We have a wonderful conversation with Mark of Shipyard and Jay of Raleon. So thank you so much to both for joining us. I'm going to do very quick housekeeping while we let people trickle in. Then I'll do introductions and we can get our conversation started. So as always, you can ask us questions in the Discord channel, #AMA. Make sure to @ myself or Mark. We'll make sure to get those questions to Jay and we'll answer everything, within reason. We also have, as you've seen, the new categories in our Discord of governance. We have the OP governance and the governance general channel. Our community leader, Captain T, is going to be introducing some conversation about Arbitrum delegate application. We have some thoughts, but we want to source the community's ideas and put together a proposal for the Clipper application to be a delegate, as we consider ourselves to be fairly significant stakeholders in the Arbitrum network. And we want you to be a part of that as well. So check that out in the governance category. Of course, the reminder, we went from V3 to V4 of our smart contract on mainnet. So if you have not migrated your liquidity, please make sure to do that so that you can earn the best fees that there is in DeFi on our new contract for mainnet. So we talked about Arbitrum application. We talked about migrating our liquidity. You can ask us AMA. Oh, one other thing. There was a layer 3 quest that a community member started for us that's posted in the main deck channel. I will source that as well. I haven't even looked at it, but we're back up on layer 3. So that's a fun quest for you. And of course, we have quests coming your way as soon as we get them automated. So without further ado, make sure to ask us questions in the AMA channel. But it is my pleasure to introduce Mark, who is the CEO of Shipyard Software and one of the team members of Clipper Dex. And we're going to be having a conversation with Jay Jenkins, who is the head of product at Raleon, a Web3 marketing platform for teams to understand, target, and engage their Web3 users. And I can't wait to start the conversation. So Mark and Jay, thanks so much for joining us.
Man, thank you. It's awesome to be here.
Likewise. Really excited for our conversation today.
Right. So I actually wanted to start, Jay. I understand that I listened to your podcast, and I'm going to put it in the main chat for you guys to check out as well. That's at shipyardsoftware.org/podcast. But you had called yourself a reformed banker, which, first of all, I love that language because I introduced myself as a reformed lawyer as well. I was in law before I came to crypto. But it sounds like your journey was from banking, and then you were at BlockFi, and then finally ended up at Raleon. And I'd love for you to tell the audience a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a little maybe dark, but this most recent bank run at SVB was the, fourth bank run of my career that I've been either directly involved in or adjacent to. I started out as
remind me not to bank with you. No offense.
Martech is a lot less risky than credit risk. I started my career as a banker doing credit risk management. I was self-employed for a while, did some marketing consulting. I did a stint as an equity analyst covering stocks, bank stocks specifically. Ended up landing at a fintech called Encino. Encino is where I met all the crew that today is Raleon. The founder, one of the co-founders of Raleon, Nathan, was also a co-founder of Encino. Encino IPO'd in 2020, was a great success. And it was around that time after the IPO where I kind of looked around and said, I'm doing all this crypto stuff at night and on weekends, and my wife is getting annoyed because I'm like constantly on my phone scrolling through Discords and things like this. And she actually looked at me one night and she's like, why don't, now's the time. Why don't you, make a jump and try something in crypto? And so I met the group. They brought in a group of PayPal leaders to run product at BlockFi right around that same time. And so I met up with those guys and ended up joining BlockFi as a director of product. I managed some internal platform functions for a while, and then in all the chaos last year, I took over the credit card product, and I led our credit card product up until the bankruptcy filing. And I can go into the story about how I sort of reconnected with Nathan and the guys at Raleon. But as soon as BlockFi went under, I immediately knew that Raleon was my next gig. It just solved a really a very acute problem for crypto projects, and being able to bring together all of the like hard-earned best practices of software marketing that we've learned over the years in Web 2 and even before, and put it in the context of crypto, right? And all the additional data and capabilities and innovative things we can do on chain. And so anyway, yeah. So now I'm heading up product at Raleon. It's really exciting. This is month 4 for me at Raleon, even though I've worked with all the guys on the team for 5, 6, 7 years.
So that's fascinating. And I do want to get into the nitty gritty details of product and how marketing affects Web3 and all that stuff. But I want to go through the personal story a little bit first, just because that's what fascinates me at the same time. A lot because we went through a somewhat similar journey in that we felt almost called to jump into crypto. First of all, when was it that your wife suggested to you that you should make the jump?
It was, let's see, it's 2023 now. It was December of 21. So she timed the top perfectly.
Yeah, that's so funny. I think I started, we actually have almost the exact same journey. So when there is that big run up in December of 2020, that's when I kind of perked up and started learning and researching. And I was spending all my time when I wasn't at work or with my kids or wife, it was researching crypto. And then about a year later, I said, look, I have to make the jump. So I think we probably started looking for work right around the same time. I'm curious though, you talked about you've been involved in 4 bank runs and then you went to BlockFi. So if you started looking December of 2021, you're in BlockFi the year of 2022 where things go a little bit sour, and you leave there. And as we know, BlockFi, they get hit with that $100 million fine and they're involved, there's issues at BlockFi, if you will. Where did the courage come from? Or why did you have thoughts about going back to sort of more traditional work? Or how did you decide to kind of keep going at it? And what did your wife think about all that too?
Yeah, there's probably some alpha in my wife's sentiment. Just whatever her like emotional peak is, do the opposite of it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Warren Buffett there in a way. But yeah, so let's see. So when I joined BlockFi, I joined just before the SEC announcement for that $100 million fine, and they launched BlockFi Wallet right as I was coming on board, just as a way to sort of I forget exactly what the regulatory specifics was on the wallet, but you launched the wallet and then they're like, okay, you're good for now. Internally at BlockFi, and I think this was true, it was viewed as like a real win. The fine was huge and it was very painful, but the regulators did come back and say, here's the path. Here's what we expect you to do. If you do these things, we'll approve the yield product and you guys will be good to go. And, it just required a lot of technical work to get everything in place and a ton of legal work to get everything sort of recalibrated to fit that mold of what they wanted. But the reason to be optimistic was that they were engaged, right? None of it was public. It was all behind the scenes. It was all like, very high level. But they were there. They were in the room. They were telling us what they wanted us to do. And as long as we did it, it was, we accepted it as good faith that they would follow through. I don't know, since, FTX and Terra Luna and all this other stuff has happened. The Terra Luna stuff didn't really affect us internally at BlockFi from the regulatory perspective, but of course, obviously the FTX stuff did, dramatically so.
Right.
So anyway, so for me, it was like seeing that what was going on behind the curtain at BlockFi at the time, it was almost called for optimism. It was like, this is going to work. We just have to like adapt to the rules that were being put together. And that was true on the deposit side, obviously, like the lending product, and then the credit card product was a whole different animal. It was a little bit outside the scope of all that because it was, it's just a credit card that happened to give rewards in crypto, right? Fundamentally, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Now, personal net worth, personal investments, right? I felt the pain just like everyone else did. But it's crypto, right? When you put your money into crypto, you expect volatility, right? So that's just part of the game, and part of playing that long-term strategy is accepting that sometimes it's going to go down.
You have to put on that cold heart. It's really interesting to me to hear you describe the optimism kind of within the ranks at BlockFi. And the way I'm connecting this to our conversation today, because I listen to y'all's podcast and I know that I have, and it sounds like you both do as well, a great interest in understanding your community and your user and giving them what the journey that they want is. And so I was a user of BlockFi. And so I hear optimism from within the ranks. And I remember when that $100 million settlement came down, that's when I stopped using BlockFi right there. So I'm curious, what was and maybe I missed the messaging, or how did you tell me your strategy in addressing that? You feel confidence within, if we do what the regulators want, we're going to be fine. Did you convey that to users as well?
We did as much as we could, and in crypto, it's one of those things too, where you put stuff on Twitter and there is appropriately, in my opinion, skepticism, right? You can't just talk, you have to actually do.
Yeah. So internally, we're seeing that a lot. Sorry to jump in. Yeah, we feel that there's a lot of talk in this space. That's for sure.
Yeah. Actions speak louder than words. Right. And so for us, it was very much like, especially from the product and engineering group, we're just going to build this and it's going to work and we're going to let the product speak for itself.
Yeah.
And so the marketing team, of course, they were very engaged, and the product I was owning at the time was all of our internal systems. So Ben, like when you would call in to ask for support, and engage with our customer support team, the software they were using behind the scenes was the product that I was running.
Oh wow!
And so for us, we were like hyper focused on this. Like, what's the best tooling we can provide so that you feel confident and you get the answers you need as quickly as you possibly can, and how can we make sure that you can get connected? BlockFi's core differentiator was white glove service, which meant we have a phone number. You can call and talk to a human who will help you with whatever questions you have. And so for us, that's really where we buckled down and we said, we're just going to blocking and tackling. When you call, we're going to answer and we're going to be honest with you and we're going to tell you exactly what you need to do, what not to worry about. And then from there, I genuinely think it would have played out well if not for the failures on the risk management side. The investment in the Bitcoin trust was obviously terrible. And then, the bailout from FTX, we thought was going to save us and buy us the time. And then, of course, that was a house of cards, too. And at that point, it was just, too little, too late. I guess that was November of last year.
Right. And I don't mean to keep you on BlockFi. I mean, that's not where you are now. It's just sort of the interest in user experience and how, because I guess the conversation is, how does the user experience dovetail or be aligned with what's going on internally? And well, should it always be aligned? I mean, is it completely aligned? What do you think philosophically high level user versus internals, and where the needs are met and what's information flow, that kind of thing?
I think all of the above starts with empathy. Maybe a good example, not BlockFi, but 2 companies ago at Encino, the org did something really, really interesting, which looking back was genius. The recruiting team actually reported up through marketing. And the reason for that is our customers, yes, they're our customers, and the prospects, yes, they were our prospects. But we also had a surface area for people that we wanted to come work for us, right? And we wanted to get the very best people. The company's based in a small beach town in North Carolina here in the States. And so even that surface of we need to go recruit future employees, even that's a marketing space, right? Even that you have to put the best foot forward. And even that has to represent the brand and the values and the quality of what you're producing, not only in terms of a product, but in terms of a culture and in terms of the impact you want to make on your industry or in the world more broadly.
Thanks. Yeah, and I want to give you a chance to talk about Raleon as well. I also want to give Mark a chance to talk. So this is a kind of a question that's to both of you. From your conversation, you had talked about how marketing can be viewed somewhat adversarially, like we're telling our users, or the product is telling its users, go do this or go buy this. And I actually can't remember which of you made the point, but it doesn't need to be looked at adversarially. It's almost like we're looking for the best way to give you what you want. And I wonder if one of you guys could pop in and talk a little bit more about that alignment.
Yes, it's weird. I'll maybe throw in a comment, and I'm interested in Jay's thoughts. It's interesting, for both sales and marketing, like you interact with products and you think that sales and marketing are trying to get you to do something, right? But actually, sales and marketing are kind of like, at the end of the day, they're trying to find a fit. They're like helping you figure out if there's something you want and if you can get that and how to get that something. And it turns out that's just like actually a really hard gap to figure out and communicate. And so it often comes across as like pushing or selling or, buzzwords or, over too slick. But really it's trying to like communicate. And one of the ways to address that gap is communication and understanding each other on a data level. And that's why I think somewhat Raleon is doing is so interesting, because that's actually a tough problem. Getting that data and then acting on it is actually quite tough.
Yeah, that's great.
I totally agree, Mark.
Yeah, Jay, maybe you can tell us a little bit about, go into more of the nitty gritty about how Raleon does that for Web3 and honestly for Clipper and Shipyard as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe like a real world, like personal analogy to start. My family, I have a wife and a young baby. We're going on vacation in 2 weeks, and we need a small like travel stroller that I can put in the airplane when we get on the plane. And so I Googled it, and now everywhere I go, I'm getting targeted ads to me with the most compact strollers you've ever heard of in your, like, it's mind blowing how small they can make these strollers.
Yeah.
And that's data understanding my intent for my Google search, and then companies presenting me with like effectively their pitch for their product to say, hey, we solve this problem that you're having, right? And I absolutely love it, right? We just ordered one yesterday, and I'm so stoked for it to come in. It's going to solve my problem because I need it, and it's personal to me. And I probably would have never found it without those personalized ads. And in crypto, the exact same sort of fundamental concept is true as well. So, for example, let's say Clipper is going to run a partnership to provide extra value to the users, right? To you all. Well, who should they run that partnership with, right? Well, data is the right way to do that. And we can use on-chain data to determine that. We can use off-chain data to determine where you're interacting with that other brand that is maybe valuable to you. Maybe you make it more real. Perhaps it's like a gaming partnership. Shipyard's going to be, I keep looking at Mark's logo on the thing saying Shipyard.
Yeah.
Clipper is going to, Clipper's going to run a cross promotion with some game, right? Okay, cool. Well, the first assumption there is that Clipper's users tend to play games. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's not true, right? The only way to know is to look at the data. And let's say within games, there's a whole lot of different games. There's Web3 games, there's traditional games. Some games use NFTs, others don't. Well, the assumption, probably a safe assumption, is that Clipper users are going to play games where there's also NFTs, right? Because it's sort of just part of the vibe of what we do. Okay, so we found the game. We can use on-chain data, and we can look for those NFTs to say, okay, well, this is the game that Clipper's users tend to play quite a bit. They're very engaged with. And then we can say, okay, cool, that's all on-chain stuff. Well, where do Clipper users engage with that game, right? Is it purely on-chain? Well, yeah, the NFTs are, but how are they communicating with that brand, right? Maybe it's on Twitch, maybe it's on Twitter, maybe it's somewhere else. Well, we need to be able to kind of join together the attribution piece to understand where are these users hanging out, right? And so can we bring those two pieces of data together? And so fundamentally, that's like the first thing Raleon does is we take data from the Web 2 side, and we do it without cookies, no pixel tracking. We do it in like a respectful, privacy first kind of way. But we say, where do these users come from? What else are they doing? Can we understand the source of, maybe their path through the DApp or, whatever it might be. And then can we join that together with on-chain stuff to say, these are the common tokens, these are common activities. These are the things that are happening sort of elsewhere in their on-chain lives. And then by bringing that stuff together, then we can start saying things like, okay, cool, this game actually does make sense to partner with. And the users seem to be very active on this particular type of NFT in the game. And so maybe we can devise some plan to say, here's a Clipper specific skin that you can put on in the game, or weapon, or whatever it might be. And all of a sudden, you're playing this game and you're an active user in Clipper. Now all of a sudden you can kind of wear that badge. You can say, this is who I am. This is what I'm a part of. That helps you with status, makes it more fun, makes it more engaging. And so really, you get a ton more value because it's something that you're already doing and you already care about, rather than some, non-personalized thing that, maybe it matters to you, maybe it doesn't, impossible to say, right? So from the marketer's point of view, that's really what it's all about. It's like using the data from your internet life and your on-chain life to say, these are the things that I care about and would be valuable to me. And then Clipper can just kind of give you that value. And it really kind of boils back down to community. If you think about it from that lens, is I just want to make the community happier. So how can I do that? I can give you stuff you care about.
Yeah, I hear that. And what Raleon does, and I loved your story with your podcast with Mark, when you were working at BlockFi, you need to actually get that data, and you couldn't find it when you were at BlockFi. And I loved when you went with Raleon, the stuff that you've been looking for 6 weeks, they just gave to you on a platter in their 20-minute demo, maybe not even knowing that you had been searching it for so long. So what makes Raleon so good at getting data in this Web3 world where it seems other people can't find it?
The analytics came first. That was the first thing, before I joined, even when our co-founders, Adam and Nathan, first kicked it up and started working, they started with analytics. And so they went out and we sourced from, I think, 5 different on-chain data providers. And then the very first thing we built was an attribution engine. And so what that immediately gave the platform the ability to do is to connect what you're doing on the Web 2 side, just sort of like the normal internet, with activity on the crypto side. And then that sort of magic moment for me, like BlockFi, I can't remember if I talked about this in much detail, but like BlockFi was we KYC'd every single client. So I know your government ID number, I know your address, I know your phone, I know everything about you, except I couldn't tell you what your on-chain net worth was, or I couldn't tell you if you funded your BlockFi account originally with like Ether or Bitcoin or whatever other asset it might have been, because there was no connection. And so Raleon, that was the very first problem they solved, because it is so difficult, sort of doing that identity resolution across the on-chain and the off-chain behaviors. And so then from there, of course, everything's been built out on top of that from there. So now we can do campaigns. We can help you track with campaign metrics and determine things like ROI and and all these other sort of marketing metrics. We can dive into the jargon if that's interesting. But anyway, yes, that's analytics is at the core. I would say that's like the fundamental answer to your question. Is that's where it started, and that's the core of the product. That's the heart and soul, and it all derives from that.
And there definitely is that additional kind of difficulty in Web3, because there is all this information on chain, but moving it kind of for like just accessing it first of all and then analyzing it. But it does seem to be a disconnect between, I guess, the meat space IRL world and or at least your Web 2 persona with your government ID and then what's actually happening on chain. Mark, maybe you have thoughts about how where there's something there. There seems like there could be growth there to build real communities. If you maybe give up your pseudo anonymity or something, because there's definitely friction here.
Yeah, well, it's a tough situation, right? Because like privacy is really important. And I think a lot of people don't really want necessarily so much data collected on them, right? But then on the flip side, like observing that data helps you give more personalized experiences, right? And so there's a natural tension there that's really it's a fine line and it's hard to walk. But even if you have the data, there's just so much of it that like aggregating it is an enormous tech problem, and then like interpreting it is a whole nother question, and then inserting actions. Like Raleon does the pop-up prompts on our site based on your own past historical kind of on-chain activities. It's just a really tough thing to do, but ultimately like it's trying to close the communication gap and make things better for users. And so I think it's mostly worthwhile.
I agree. I like the way you phrase it too, closing the communication gap. And to that point, communication has to be constant and it has to be easy. You know what I mean? And at BlockFi, the core problem was that we needed engineers to get the data to figure out what the communication needed to be. And I'm sure some of you on the call or on the AMA here are engineers, and you're probably like, well, it's not that hard. Just go write a query in Dune and, do these things. And that's right. But as an engineer, like, I don't want you to have to stop what you're doing to go do this little marketing experiment for me, right? I'd much rather you build product, right? Which is going to, over the long term, create that sort of compounding effect to the company to grow the community and, sort of create those long lasting effects. I'd
Yeah,
much rather have a tool.
not to mention, like, you plan out a sprint a week or two in advance minimum. And so, like, if you make that request of devs, I mean, you're not going to get the data back for a couple weeks. And then you might have to, like, change it or do another query based on those learnings. So it's just kind of impractical to do it through asking the dev team.
Totally. Yeah. So you need a no-code tool that takes all of that complexity. Like, I want your marketing intern who just graduated from school to come in and on day one be able to run an experiment and not have to know what the word indexed or decode or like any of these things even means. Like, make that completely abstracted away and just say, this is the subset of users that care about this specific thing, run the campaign, and then offer them this thing that we think they'll care about, that'll actually be valuable to them. Like, just make it that simple. That's really what we're trying to do.
So, let's just use Clipper as a test case, and we'll use me as the no-code user. If I wanted to go in and find out what are the types of questions I should be asking to find out what's important in my community and what's the best way to go about it. Perhaps I dropped too open-ended of a question on you, but
Mark, you want to go first, and then I can give the Raleon specific kind of follow-up.
Just tell me how to have the best community in all of DeFi, even though we might already have it.
Yeah, and Jay, you're welcome to share whatever you want about the kind of Clipper setup and data and whatnot. It's pretty cool. There's an interface. You go in, you can kind of like see all your users, what they've done on the site, and like look at for the wallets that connected, just kind of like get a sense of how much what they've done in the past, whether other dexes they've used, how much they understand and use DeFi or don't, and then basically you can target communications based on those criteria, which you can just kind of point and click around and set it up. And that's something that we've done on Clipper. For example, like, there's a lot of people in the audience who, maybe in the audience, but certainly in the community, who have liquidity in an old pool before the redeploy. We need to make sure they know that if they want to keep getting yield, they have to roll over that liquidity into the new pool that's been deployed. And then similarly, sometimes we see people who were active traders and then stopped, and so we could prompt them with a question or a survey, about their experience, and those are some of the ways in which we're integrating Raleon today.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like the first step is to understand what your existing community is doing, is like already doing behaviorally. What is it they already care about? Think about like your brother, your sister, your wife, whoever. Like, it's very hard to convince people to do things differently or to try something new, right? There's a ton of things you have to kind of overcome before they'll take that step, right? It's a much better approach to just say, well, what do you already care about? And then you can sort of start shaping your campaign, or you can start shaping your messaging around that existing, call it, set of behaviors. And Raylan's very, very good at that. And so it gives you the ability to go into your community, defined as, anyone who's visited your landing page or you're engaged with your DApp in any way, connected wallet, or, actually done transactions, through whatever the smart contract might be. And then you can sort of, as Mark kind of said, you can say, well, what do they actually do? Right? What are the behaviors these folks actually demonstrate? So what do they own? Where do they transact? Are they playing games? If so, which games within that game? What NFTs have they acquired? What's their player progression look like on the DeFi side, right? Are they swapping? Are they providing liquidity? Are they more like speculative, like leverage trading? Is it more like a yield farming kind of thing? On the NFT community side, right, there's a whole nother set of questions and behaviors and attributes you can consider. And then that sort of behavioral exploration will tell you, well, these are the things they're doing. Now let's start crafting things and improving our own product and our own sort of community momentum to take advantage of that, and take advantage of that, not like in a manipulative way, but just like, like when I'm hanging out with my friends, we're going to talk about the things that we all have in common, right? So let's build our community around our commonality. And so Raleon's very, very good at that. And then once you sort of have that established, then you can start doing things like, well, where else do people that have these same characteristics hang out? So now you can start going and finding new prospects. So it's about growing what you already have and sort of refining it and creating deeper relationships. But it's also about then using that knowledge to say, well, here's other people elsewhere in crypto or not in crypto who have these similar characteristics who we think our value prop would match, right? So then it's more of a genuine offer to say, my bet based on your characteristics is you have this problem. We happen to solve that problem really well, right? So it's not really a shill in that way. It's, hey, I can actually like help you, right? I can, in Clipper, I can help you make better trades. I can help you earn better yield with your liquidity, and so on. And in a game, it might be, we see like these games. Our games are similar, but has this unique spin, right? So come check it out. We think you're going to have fun playing it, so you can sort of see how it extrapolates from there to other use cases.
Right, and we can bring people in with the promise of we're going to do what you want and do it better for you, advocate for ourselves, and then they become advocates for Clipper, and they can go out and get users for us as well, be force multipliers.
Exactly. I love it. And that is, I guess, the final piece is like, once you've done all that, then it's about, the little pop-up, we call it action prompts that Mark's describing is our current way of doing that. But then you have to deliver that personalized offer to the users that actually care about it, right? Because Clipper has a huge community, right? Everyone's not going to be interested in the same things. So Raleon gives you the ability to segment down. And then that way you can just sort of offer, you offer the gamers the gaming partnership. You offer the NFT community people the NFT specific thing, which that was the use case for the credit card product at BlockFi. But anyway, I interrupted you there, Ben. Sorry about that.
No, it's just I wanted to be cognizant of your time, so I know we only have you for about 30 minutes. So I wanted to let Mark maybe give you a couple wrap-up questions or a wrap-up question. In the meantime, I ask our audience members if you have any specific questions, just at us in #AMA, and we can start winding this thing down. So Mark, anywhere you want to go with our last few minutes together. Although we may have lost.
I just had to unmute. I think that was nicely put. I think this is like a important sequence of conversations talking about how we actually do things on Clipper, what tools we use, and why those are hard problems that need to get solved, and share that with the community. So, Jay, I really appreciate your coming on and sharing what you're doing with us, why it's important, why it's a hard problem that needs to be solved in order to help crypto and help individuals within crypto have a more personalized journey for themselves. So thank you very much.
It's been my pleasure. I appreciate the invite. And, I genuinely believe, rising tide lifts all boats. And so we're all in the industry together. And so the better we can communicate what we're all about and the value that all of these, blockchain-enabled products provide, I think that's better for everyone.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jay, and thank you for your time, Mark. And it's exciting that we get to work with Raleon. We take our users' needs very seriously, and we want that communication to be a loop. We want to hear from them. We want to know from them. We want to give them information, be as transparent as possible. And it seems like Raleon will help us in all of those wants and desires. So with that, let me give the announcements I gave at the beginning. Make sure to migrate your liquidity from V3 to V4 of the Ethereum mainnet. We have an open layer 3 quest, and we are going to be sourcing the community's opinions for the Arbitrum delegate application, which you can see in the governance channel. You should check out shipyardsoftware.org/podcast to see the podcast with Jay. He is the head of product at Raleon, which Clipper is using. And thanks to everyone who joined us. Enjoy your Friday and happy trading. Thanks a lot, everyone, and bye-bye.